Hey everyone, it's me, B3, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Today we have one I've been wanting to read for quite a while, read it a while back, and I'm now finally getting to reviewing it. Hellboy, the Complete Short Stories Omnibus, Volume 2. I have reviewed Volume 1 and also Volume 1 of the regular Hellboy Omnibus, if you want to check those out. I'm trying to read through the entire Mignola-verse. I know, okay? I wish I would have started it from the beginning like the Massive verse, but that was decades ago, and here we are. Okay? Alright, but let me read you the back of the book real quick, alright? 17 standalone stories, all written by Mignola, show the full range of his talent. His art evolves across the 140 pages of the book drawn by him from the early folklore masterpiece Heads through In the Chapel of Moloch, the last full comic he drew before concluding the saga in Hellboy, in Hell. Also, Richard Corbin returns, drawing 70 pages, including Hellboy's first fight with satanic royalty in The Bride of Hell. Legendary Mignola contemporaries Scott Hampton, P. Craig Russell, and Kevin Nolan can draw full-length stories. The previous Mignola collaborators Jason Sean Alexander from Abe Sapien and the Drowning, the co-writer Joshua Dessart from b.r.p.d. 1946 and 1947 pit Hellboy and Abe against Blackbeard. The vampire novella The Sleeping and the Dead and the apocalyptic Macoma. Oh, excuse me. I'm very gunked up. Macoma, with its grave implications about Hellboy's fate, are collected alongside Mignola's short stories from the Dark Horse books of Haunting, Witchcraft, Monsters, and the Dead. Goodbye, Mr. Todd features Hellboy's first run-in with the Lovecraftian monsters who later overrun the world, while the Baba Yaga and the Vampire of Prague set up mortal grudges that haunt him in Hellboy in Hell and The Wild Hunt. The stories collected here span the years from 1961 until 1993, leading up to the events of Seed of Destruction. The 2 volumes of the complete short stories together with the 4-volume Omnibus series collect all of Mignola's award-winning Hellboy stories in chronological order, which is great and awesome, and I cannot wait to read the Hellboy Omnibus Volume 2. So, this is a pretty great collection, and there are a lot of magnificent stories in it. You got the Hydra and the Lion, which appears to be about, spoiler alert, Hercules. Very, very interesting. I also really like how the Hydra is drawn. I like how Mignola draws everything. This one is Mignola drawn. Really, top-tier stuff. And the Troll Witch is also a very interesting story. I don't know if you've seen the Mignola documentary on Prime, but he really likes pulling from a lot of mythologies and types of stories that typically aren't pulled from in Western fiction, which gives his books a unique feel when compared to similar works from the time and the place. But yeah, the Troll Witch was really cool. I personally liked Baba Yaga, showing how Hellboy blew her eye out. Also, I've always been a Baba Yaga fan since I was a kid. I've always thought she was like a cool folklore creature. And I'm glad that she has the big saggy tits in Hellboy, because she's kind of known for the big saggy tits. You never see the big saggers. Anyway, you have The Sleeping and the Dead. Not Mignola art, but still pretty great art. It's drawn in a very black and white way, with Hellboy's red not being the only color, but the only color that pops. It's hard to make sense of, but like you can see people's blonde hair and stuff, but reds are the only colors that pop, but they're not the only colors. That make more sense? And of course in the flashback you can see a lot of yellows and brown kind of popping. But Hellboy kills a vampire, which seems pretty standard, but that awakens an even stronger vampire with a ton of thralls. This one was actually really cool. Plus there's another type of creature in it that is pretty spooky. Very spooky. I'm sorry I'm so gunky. Okay? I really am. I am just, I don't know if I'm sick or what, but 'tis the season, eh? You also have Heads, which is about all of these heads that detach from their bodies at night, which are a creature that I've seen used before. Like I've seen SCP, I think it's SCPs based on this folklore. Pretty cool, but the floating heads want to eat Hellboy, but he drowns their bodies so they can't get back to him, and the heads are destroyed. You also have Goodbye, Mr. Todd, which is about a medium who connects to an eldritch horror. Pretty neat. Pretty cool. There's also the Varkalak. Is that how you pronounce it? Hellboy's given this crazy vision, and there's this like vampire god who was awesome. Like super cool. I loved it. The Varkalak was a very cool monster. Very cool indeed. Truly and truly. We've got this story called The Vampire of Prague. And the vampire was really cool. He felt very London After Midnighty to me. And there's just all these ghosts in Prague. And he's like this weird cursed vampire that's also a ghost. Who's also like a gambler. Little Babadook looking ass. And I know the Babadook is visually at least based on London After Midnight's vampire. A lot of puppets. And I like puppets, so that was a good one to me. It was also kind of funny. I like when they're kind of funny. Then you have The Bride of Hell, which is about a bride of hell. But there's this woman, and there's kind of a pretty obvious twist in this book. Spoilers. Hellboy saves her from like being sacrificed up to this devil as, well, a sacrifice to be a bride, but then it turns out that she consented to it. She wants to be his bride. And it's actually pretty cool. And I really enjoyed the backstory of this kind of demon, or was it devil? But it's Asmodeus, you know. And he apparently, after being dragged around by King Solomon, found peace and wasn't hurting anybody. He just like had this big castle, and there were brides in it that genuinely loved him and that he genuinely loved. And then these crusader looking dudes who would eventually kind of become the b.r.p.d, I guess. They came, slaughtered all his wives while he was gone, and that kind of turned him into a horrible demon again. But he wasn't hurting anybody anymore. And he was dragged out of hell unwillingly, kind of. So this is another one that's not Mignola's art, but still really good art. You also have The Witter Legacy, which is about this guy whose ancestors were able to like commune with the dead and stuff. Another funny one. Eldritchy, funny, really enjoyable. Mignola art, which is always a plus. You have Buster Oakley Gets His Wish. It's about this kid who kind of holds this demonic ritual, and then there's something killing cows. Turns out the demonic ritual, and this is really funny, they want you to think it's a demonic ritual, and I'm like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Aliens. It is Aliens. It's like very traditional abduct the cows probing aliens, and they seem to actually fuse that boy with a cow, so he becomes like a cow guy who helps Hellboy fight the aliens and their big, really cool, kind of vintagey looking robot. But then they send them back to Earth, the cow runs off and starts like a cult with all the kids. Very odd book. Then we get another one without Mignola's art. They that go down to the sea in ships. This is one about Blackbeard. His skull is found, and it wants to be reunited with its body, all supernatural and junk, and then Blackbeard, once reunited with it, kind of just wants to fuck around on Earth, killing and shit. But then, Hellboy and Abe Sapien find him, and they're not really even the ones that beat him. You'll have to see. You have A Christmas Underground, which is kind of another Hellish Bride kind of story. And I actually kind of like... And there's this part where a wedding ring turns into, like, a fire salamander. And that was actually really cool. I quite liked it. God, Mignola's art is just the best thing in the world. There's a reason he's my partner's favorite artist of all time. You have Dr. Karp's Experiment. Ooh la la. And Hellboy finds this kind of chamber, and there seems to be maybe some kind of temporal event that happens in it that he gets involved with. It's very interesting. You have a big giant ape creature, which made me think of Arthur Adams, who is one of Mike Mignola's best friends, even from before they made it big. Love Arthur Adams' art, by the way. Love how he draws apes. Love how he draws monsters, especially kaiju. You also have the Ghoul. Really liked the Ghoul. Ghouls, I feel like, are often not depicted correctly, and they're also a very underrated monster. Once again, the Ghoul is another one I've always liked since I was a kid, but real ghouls. Oftentimes you hear ghoul, and it's just a zombie, or it's like a ghost. That's not what a ghoul is. A ghoul is a creature that eats the flesh of dead humans. And this one was posing as a human. Very, very cool. Very, very ghoul. Also, if you want to see a good ghoul movie, Mr. Sardonicus. Definitely check that out. William Castle film. It's not a full ghoul, but it is inspired by ghouls, and it does actually use what ghouls are correctly. Huh? It was pretty cool. And I really liked this story. Proper use of a ghoul. You also have In the Chapel of Moloch. So they go in this church, and Moloch has, like, possessed this painter and made him sculpt this big statue of Moloch. There's this little demon guy. The Moloch bull statue comes to life. It's very cool. There's this horrific beating heart, and there are a couple funnier parts in it. There's also Macoma. I really like this one too. It's also called A Tale Told by a Mummy in the New York City Explorers Club on August 16th, 1963. So this mummy kind of tells Hellboy this story in a psychic fashion. This wonderful, like, African mythological story. Not Mignola art, but once again, really good art. It's an incredibly interesting myth that I really, really enjoyed listening to. But the mummy only tells it to Hellboy psychically and then crumbles to dust after. So the Explorers Club thinks Hellboy destroyed the mummy. Also, there's this really awesome Hydra dragon with kind of turtle-looking heads. It's a really sick-looking monster, and I absolutely loved it. And, of course, in the back, there's also a sketchbook that's a really cool inclusion into these omnibuses, or the sketchbooks. I really liked the sketches of the big Hellboy hybrid ape. Mignola seems to keep really all their works like this, which is really nice. But yeah, that is it for Hellboy, the Complete Short Stories Omnibus, Volume 2. I enjoyed every story in it. There wasn't a single one where I was like, eh. I burned through the whole giant book in a sitting. I really did. These Hellboy books, these omnibuses, every time I pick one up, I just can't put it down. I just can't put it down. and I loved it. But that's it for now. Thank you all very much for your support. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, etc. Might have more DC next time. Not entirely sure, but until then, I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.